Michael got at this really well. We're up to a line now about the Constitution. We're over a line about the Constitution and the First Amendment. We have 6 members of Congress who are also American citizens. Any American citizen can say this, to stand and say the armed forces of the United States, the officer and enlisted personnel of the armed forces of the United States should never obey illegal orders and must always follow the Constitution. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth think somehow that is a horrific thing to say, when in fact, in a normal time in this country, you wouldn't even think to say it because it's so obvious. It's like saying, don't drive off a cliff. Don't walk into a wall. And instead, they're treating this very common sense and eternally important principle of the U.S. military and civilian control of the U.S. military as if it is a dire offense against Donald Trump and the good order of the United States Armed Forces. And that tells you where they are, because once again, and we've been saying this for a long time. A lot of us have been saying this for a long time. Donald Trump believes that the U.S. military should be his personal muscle. It should be his personal militia that answers only to him, not to Congress, not to the Constitution, not to the American people, nobody. Donald Trump thinks that Article 2 means he owns the military like he owns buildings or owns anything else. And, this is an attempt by him and others to say to members of Congress and to all American citizens that you have no right to express your views about the military or the Constitution or your own freedoms.
I mean, Tom Nichols, I think the public record proves that it's actually worse than that. Not just that he owns the military, but that they're dupes, that they're, I'm sorry, let me quote him, suckers and losers. They're suckers and losers whose sacrifice he doesn't respect, appreciate, or even comprehend. And at Arlington National Cemetery, General Kelly stood there trying to explain to him why they die for their country, why men and women give their life for their country. And Trump couldn't make sense of it in his own mind. So it's all those things about owning the military, but the actual men and women inside the military are, to Donald Trump, quote, suckers and losers. Why are they so threatened? Why are they so threatened, though, by anyone with a platform telling those men that Trump thinks are, quote, suckers and losers, that they can't follow illegal orders?
Donald Trump is intimidated by anyone who exhibits any kind of virtue, any kind of commitment to selfless service, any kind of loyalty to something bigger than themselves. He's incapable, as a narcissist, he's incapable of understanding people who commit to anything that is larger to themselves or to some principle or to the public good. It just doesn't compute for him. His mind doesn't work that way. This is the guy, as you pointed out, he stood in Arlington Cemetery and said, I don't get it. What was in it for them? He literally can't parse the thought that people do things as a matter of principle, as service to others, as self-sacrifice. And I think places like Arlington Cemetery and people like Mark Kelly or John Kelly or Jim Mattis or others, they make him uncomfortable because they're a constant reminder of everything he is not.